This is a quick explanation of the 2017-2018 data reports for TN Ready testing from the 2016-2017 school year. The new reports are in-depth, have new actionable data, and can be easily used to target instruction. However, they are filled with some information that can be overwhelming. The goal of this video is to explain the reports so as to make it easy to understand, easy to process, and easy to use. We will begin with a report called the Individual Student Report, or ISR. This report is given to each student to take home. Because of the volume of the reports that we have now, we have decided not to print all of the reports for the teachers. However, they are uploaded in the Google Drive, and your students from last year, as well as the students you have this year, will be shared with you. We will first look at the ELA ISR. The first thing that you will notice is that it is labeled English Language Arts in the subject box. In the top right-hand corner, you will see that it is grade 3. You will also notice that this student was performance level 1. You will notice an explanation for performance levels at the bottom. Level 1 says below grade level. We will talk about this more in just a second. You will also notice the overall score in the top right-hand corner. So this student's overall score was 311. We can now compare this score to the school, district, and state average for this grade level test. You will also notice the performance levels at the bottom of this graphic. This will tell you the overall score ranges for each performance level. This is useful in determining how close this student was to the next performance level, either higher or lower. For instance, this student scored 311. If you look at the level 1 box, it shows a range of 200 to 321. This tells the teacher that this student was 10 overall points away from a higher performance level. You can also use this to see who would be in danger of slipping to a lower performance level. This is a great tool for grouping, identifying bubble students, and creating individual academic plans in cooperation with the Standards Analysis Report. Then this report gives an individual explanation to the current progress of the student in regards to college and career readiness. It also gives an explanation of academic readiness of students at this performance level. Thirdly, it shows the performance levels. Level 4 being mastered. This used to be the advanced level. Level 3 is on track. This used to be the proficient level. Level 2 is approaching. This used to be the basic level. And level 1 is below grade level, and this used to be below basic. Each performance level is accompanied by an explanation. Lastly, for this page, this graphic shows the percentage of students scoring in each performance level for the school, district, and state. For instance, you can compare this student who is in performance level 1 and see that 25% of the school also scored in this level 1 range, from 200 to 321 overall score. You will also see that 26% of the district and 26% of the state scored in this same category. Just to show the level of difficulty for this test, only 3% of the school, 4% of the district, and 7% of the state performed at level 4 mastery level, which indicates that the student knows the content well enough to teach it. The second page of the ISR shows even more detail for this student's ELA test. You can first look at the sub-score category. This shows the reporting categories for ELA in third grade. It also shows what is being assessed for each reporting category. For instance, the reporting category Reading Literature is assessing how students read and analyze fiction, fables, folk tales, and myths. The sub-score rating in the third column shows how this student did compared to students who met the minimum on-track score. So in this case, this student was similar to on-track students in informational text. This would be a strength. The other reporting categories are lower than the minimum on-track score and would be areas for improvement. The next column shows how many points were available for the reporting category, and the last column shows how many points the student earned. This is useful to determine power standards for teaching, possible interventions for the student, and areas to focus on PLCs and professional development. The lower part of this chart shows the total points the student scored compared to the total available points. The three columns at the bottom of the page are a great addition to state reports. They give an individual academic plan for each student, detailing the student's strength, areas for improvement, and next steps. The strengths category show what the student did well with in accordance to the questions he answered correctly on the test. This can be linked to the academic standards tied to the questions this student answered correctly. If enough students answered this correctly, this tells me that the teacher did a great job teaching these standards last year and could give indication that the teacher this year would not need to spend as much time on these units and can focus on areas for improvement with the extra time. The areas for improvement show areas of weakness and standards that need reteaching. These would be areas that the teacher could focus on in the upcoming year to help this student, and areas that the teacher from the previous year could use to improve practice through examination of assessment and teaching strategies. The last column shows the logical next steps for the student to improve performance and tangible ways to do so. We also have the new individual score reports in mathematics. The math report is set up the same way as the English Language Arts report, with performance levels, overall score comparisons, and performance level comparisons. These are pretty awesome reports to look at. The backside is the same with sub-score category comparisons to on-track students and individual academic plan information for each individual student. The individual performance reports for science are the same as in previous years. The first sentence of this report shows the scale score and performance level for this grade level for science. It is worth noting that science is still on the old performance levels: advanced, proficient, basic, and below basic. Next, you will notice the sub-score reporting categories and that the student is given a performance level for each reporting category. This shows the teacher what skills the student could improve on and areas to focus on the upcoming year. The third column shows the possible points as well as the number of points scored by the student. Notice the first reporting category: cells, flow of matter and energy, and heredity had 14 points, and that 14 points were gained by this student. Thus, the advanced classification for this student in this category. However, the second category, interdependence, biodiversity, and change, had a possible 14 points, and the student only attained a 13. This 1 point made the difference in advanced and proficient. The fourth column shows the percentage of points earned by the student. The diamond shows the percentage the student earned. The gray area indicates the range the student would need to be proficient in a reporting category. The line indicates the cutoff percentage for basic level status. The next three columns compare the student's percentage against the school, district, and state. There is also a section for strengths and weaknesses under the performance level key. The class roster is a dynamic tool to get a glimpse of performance levels for the class as well as strengths and weaknesses in each performance category for the class in one snapshot. Okay, so the first thing you will notice is the graph at the top right-hand corner. This is the same graph on the individual student report and tells us the percentage of students scoring in each of the performance levels for the class, the school, the district, and the state. The key above the class roster tells us that SS is the scale score. The pound sign tells us the number of questions for each reporting category, as well as how many each student correctly answered. The percent column simply tells us the percentage correct from the number column. And the SSR, or sub-score rating, compares the score of each student in each reporting category against the score of students who met the minimum on-track score. The key for the SSR is above the class roster in the middle. The up arrow indicates the student did better than the minimum on-track score. A down arrow indicates the student did worse than the minimum on-track score. And a side-to-side arrow indicates the student performed similar to an on-track student. There are also rows for state, district, school, and class averages for comparisons. Then the students are grouped by performance level. All of the students who scored in level 4, mastery, will be grouped together. All in level 3, on track, will be grouped together. Then level 2, approaching, and level 1, below grade level, is on our next page. This is a great way to get a snapshot of the groups you have in your room. It is also a tool for targeted intervention for all students. There is one level 4 student in this class. He scored above or similar to the minimum on-track score in all but 2 reporting categories: writing development and writing focus and organization. This tells me what this student needs to be working with during RTI enrichment and in small groups in Tier 1 instruction is writing development and writing focus and organization. It also tells me which areas the class is learning well and which areas I may need to try a new strategy or examine the alignment of my assessments to mirror question types of the TN Ready test. This is the second page and continues the approaching list at the top and the below grade level list at the bottom. As you examine this class roster, notice that the lowest group did much better in reading than they did in writing. There were 12 writing subcategory questions. 5 students did not get a single point in this section. These students should be grouped in working on these standards and practice using the question types for these subcategories. Again, these rosters are dynamic and invaluable for a teacher planning their RLA groups and interventions. This is the science class report, and the older reports are good but harder to read. Notice the sub-score categories at the very top. These columns go all the way down the page. So when you are looking at the first student's performance levels and points earned, they correlate with the column above. The first student's performance level was a black circle under PL. They earned 11 out of 14 points under the PE. And both the PL and the PE were in the reporting category of cells, flow of matter and energy, and heredity. The key to the left tells us that if the student scored advanced, proficient, basic, or below basic in each reporting category. Below the sub-score categories, there is a graph section that has average points earned for the teacher, school, district, and state. The next section tells us the cut scores for each reporting category. For instance, you can see the first student who scored 11 out of 14 in cells, flow of matter and energy, and heredity just made the proficiency cut at 11. Now notice the advanced row. It tells me that this student needed 2 more points in this category to achieve the advanced performance level of 13 or higher. The section next to the students' names shows overall performance, including overall performance level. The class roster is a good way to evaluate which areas need more time, a new teaching strategy, or an examination of assessment. It also shows which areas students are absorbing well. This can also be analyzed for replication of success with teaching strategy, time given to a particular subject, time of the year that it is taught, and assessment strategies used. The school summary report is a snapshot for the entire school or grade level. The left-hand column contains a summary for the school, district, and state for percentages and number of students in each performance level. The second column, titled the Sub-Score Rating Summary, is a little harder to know what it is telling us. Do you remember the individual student report and class reports that had the arrows that showed us if we were higher, similar, or lower than the minimum on-track score? If you remember that, this tells us the percentage of students with each arrow. For instance, under computation with whole numbers, 82% of the school students scored lower than the minimum on-track score. 18% scored similar to the minimum on-track score, and 0% scored higher than the minimum on-track score. The numbers for the school and the state are there for comparison as well. The third column shows the average percentage of points earned in each subcategory. In computation with whole numbers, our school got around 28% of the possible points, while the state averaged 42% of the possible points. The second page of the school summary gives the number and percentage of students at each performance level. While it may seem redundant to have this on each report, it is definitely useful when only using one report. This is the Standard Analysis Report. This report is the mother of all new reports. We finally have our reports broken down by standard and can use this to target our lessons to close gaps with our weaknesses and replicate our successes. The first column tells us the academic standard that was assessed. It's important to note that these are based on the old standards before the adoption of the 2017 academic standards for reading and math. After much labor, Mr. Jim Davis has linked each of the old standards to a report like this so that you can see what each standard is. These additional reports will be reviewed with you individually. The next two columns show us the number of test questions and how many points the question or group of questions is worth. This is useful for developing power standards in your PLC. For instance, in this group of standards, the most points come from which two standards? Right, RI.6.2 and RL.6.2. These would be power standards. The three standards that have the least weight on this test are then L.6.2b, RI.6.7, and RI.6.9. The last three columns show us how the school did on each standard and in comparison to the state and the school. These comparisons are crucial for making decisions. For instance, at first glance, one would assume that we would need to put a lot of focus and energy on RI.6.9 because we only got 15% of the points available for this standard. And when compared to other standards, it is significantly lower. However, by looking at the system in the state, we see that this was a hard question and that we actually did better than the district and the state on this standard. Do we want to improve this standard? Yes, of course. However, it may be best to put energy into another standard, such as L.6.2b, which we got 44% of the points, higher than 15%, but we were significantly lower than the district and the state. The last thing that we have are the student labels for the CUME records. The only negative about any of these reports is that these student levels came back alphabetized by the school level and not grade or class. So we had to cut them out, organize by grade level, and then have them in semi-alphabetical order. These are like the old labels, but are still very important to get a close look at an individual student. This shows us how the student did for each content area. That is all of the reports that will be shared with you. Thank you for your time and attention. I'll be coming by your PLCs to give the standards analysis reports, and the other reports will be shared with you on your Google Drive. Have a blessed day.